The original biblical tradition of Shavuot being Chag HaBikurim, the holiday celebrating the first fruits, bear in mind that Pesach marks the beginning of the spring planting season, and so as a result, Shavuot would be the gleanings of the things to come after the spring season. It's literally a shoulder moment, and a very brief one, of course, because, unlike here in Canada, the transition from spring to summer, certainly in Israel, is the briefest of moments, and hence that may be one of the reasons why Sukkot, of course, is 7 days in Israel, 8 days out of Israel. Pesach is 7 days in Israel, 8 days out of Israel. But Shavuot in Israel is 1 day. 1 day. 1 day. But the story of it being Chag HaBikurim, this agricultural holiday, the holiday of the first fruits, of the first gleanings, quickly disappeared. And the narrative now we have of Shavuot is not that of an agricultural moment, it is that of an historical theological moment. And that is the connection that Shavuot marks the moment when the Torah was given to the Jewish people. Chag Matan Torah, the holiday of the giving of the Torah. In each of the holidays, of the pilgrimage festival holidays, of the harvest holidays, there is a rabbinic book that is attached to each of these holidays. By way of example, on the holiday of Pesach, it is traditional in congregations to read Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. On Sukkot, it is traditional to read on the Shabbat of Sukkot, the book of Ecclesiastes. And those make eminent sense. Of course, Pesach is the story of the union, the covenant between God and the people of Israel. The book of the Song of Songs is an erotic love poem between a man and a woman, such as it is imagined of the relationship between the people of Israel and God. The book of Ecclesiastes is an existentialist, angst-ridden book about possessions and materialism. And Sukkot is nothing but an argument about the proper attitudes, about the things that we have in this world, about the pursuit of materialism. Shavuot also has its own book. And Shavuot's book is the book of Ruth. Book of Ruth is a story about conversion. And you have to ask yourself, why did the ancient rabbis, why did they choose the book of Ruth to be the book that they would match with the holiday of the giving of the Torah? I want to provide, before I get to the real question, you might be asking yourself, well, if they didn't choose the book of Ruth, what biblical book could be the companion to this moment? And I would stand here and argue that the book of the prophet Nehemiah, should have been the chosen book to match the holiday of Shavuot, the story of the giving of the Torah. Why is that? Because the book of Nehemiah tells of the return of the exile from Babylon, the rebuilding of the second temple, and the story of Ezra the scribe, who was called the Moses of his generation. The Torah that we have in our hands today, the way that it is organized, was given to us by Ezra and not by Moses. And yet those ancient rabbis didn't choose the book of Nehemiah. They chose the story of Ruth. And the question is why? The story of Ruth is not only the story about conversion. The story of Ruth actually asks deeper questions. It asks, what kind of Judaism are we supposed to believe in? What are the frameworks and borders of Judaism? How open are we, or how closed are we? What is the process and understanding of what it means that you want to join into the story of the Jewish people? Because let's be honest, in the story of the book of Ruth, unlike today, the organization surrounding her conversion, in very, very polite language, is shoddy and haphazard and quick. There is no Beit Din that Ruth appears in front of. There's no community class that Ruth goes to for a year. She has no sponsoring rabbi that she meets with every 6 weeks. There's no expectation of her attending a synagogue every Shabbat. What's Ruth's statement of conversion? All we hear in the story of Ruth, to give you a little bit of background, the story of Ruth tells us that she is a Moabite woman. Remember that. The tribe that she comes from, this non-Jewish tribe, is that she is a Moaviyah. She is a Moabite woman. She lives in Moab, and she marries a Jewish man who comes along with his mother to live there. He leaves Israel, and he moves to Moab with his mother, whose name is Naomi. Along with him is also his brother, Chilion. And he also takes a non-Israelite woman, her name is Orpah, to marry. Within time, both of these men, these two sons of Naomi, die. And Naomi, now penniless and childless and really homeless because her sons passed away, looks at her two daughter-in-laws and say, Chiabaita, go home. Go back to your families and go back to your tribes. Go back to your societies that you know. And I'm going to go back to the land of Israel and be with my people. One of the daughters, Orpah, says, you're right. I should go back. And what does Ruth say to her? La'an telchi elech. Where you will go, I will go. Lan telin alin. And where you will sleep, I will sleep. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. And thus the story begins. The story of Ruth, the story of conversion, brings to question the two ideas of Shavuot. One, the idea of Shavuot is the story where God has chosen the Jewish people to be his people, to give the Torah to. It is the story of exceptionalism. Of the Jews are made an exception because they are given the law to. They are chosen. And the entrance of a convert into this community is a challenge to that idea of exceptionalism. But the second idea as to why the story of Ruth is read on this morning is found in this. What tribe was Ruth from? See if you remember. From Moab. From Moab. In the 23rd chapter of the book of Deuteronomy, in the second verse, we are told that you will not permit anyone from the tribe of Moab to enter into the Jewish people. A Moabite is not permitted to marry nor enter into, to become part of the people of Israel. And why is that? When the Israelites were leaving Egypt, they wanted to cut through the territory of Moab. And the Moabites said, you're not allowed into our territory. We're not letting you in. And the Torah turns back to them and says, we're not letting you in either. You can't be part of this. Now, to be honest, the ancient commentators, some of them say, because you know that in Hebrew, it has both feminine and male gender words. So for a male Moabite, it would be Moavi. And then for a female, it would be Moaviah. And so some of the commentators said, no, it only refers to the men of the Moabites and not to the females. But is that really convincing? For example, in the Ten Commandments, we don't have one here, but in the Ten Commandments it says, Lo tirtzach, you shall not murder, in the masculine form. Does it mean that women can murder? No. If you're my wife, sometimes yes, but... But no, I mean, we know that it speaks in indefinite forms in the masculine, but it refers to all humanity. It's not convincing at all. So what's the answer? Why did the ancient rabbis choose a story on Shavuot that specifically undermines and challenges and violates one of the commandments in the Torah itself? I don't want to say I have the answer, but I want to give you an answer. One, I think the ancient rabbis were trying to convey something about what they deeply believed to be, about the message of Jews and Judaism. Number one, they believe that Judaism is redemptive. They believe that it can save lives. The second they believed is that the Torah belongs to us, not to God. God may have given it to us. But what God gave to us was a seed, not a tree. We prune and water and plant and pluck from the tree. And the third thing is, what the ancient rabbis deeply believed, is that if it belongs to us and it is redemptive, then it should be open, not closed. I'm going to close with this one story only because it's one of my favorite stories. And it is a story about conversion. It comes by way of a famous German rabbi. His name was Joachim Prinz, who escaped Germany, I think in 1934, ended up moving to New Jersey, and he headed a very prominent congregation in northern New Jersey. Of particular note, Philip Roth, the American Jewish writer, always features Rabbi Prinz in his novels at some point. Always. Prinz, in his autobiography, tells the following story. On a Thursday, he gets a call in his home from the Israeli ambassador to America, asking him if he would come to John F. Kennedy Airport first thing on Friday morning at the behest of the Prime Minister of Israel. He says, I have like 2 bar mitzvahs tomorrow, I have a wedding on Sunday. He goes, I'll be there. Shows up, there's a black car, takes him whatever, goes on the plane, lands in London. There's another black car, takes him to a hotel in London. They go to the penthouse, and there's a bunch of Israeli attachés there, and the Israeli ambassador to the United Kingdom comes to him and says, pointing, then there was a woman also in the room, and he says, her name is Mary. And David Ben-Gurion, the prime minister of the state of Israel at that time, Ben-Gurion's son Amos had fallen in love with her. After the War of Independence, he had been wounded. And Mary was a Scottish Catholic nurse who worked in a hospital, and she cared for him, and they fell in love. Ben-Gurion was not religious at all, but he realized that it would look very bad if the prime minister of the state of Israel's son married someone who wasn't Jewish. So the ambassador turns to him and says, you have until Monday morning to convert her, because the wedding is taking place Wednesday in Israel. Will you do it? And Prince says, I'll do it. They study all day Friday, all day Shabbat, all day Sunday. Monday he brings her to the mikveh in the morning, gets back on a plane, returns to New Jersey. She goes to Israel. Years later, he met this rabbi, Joachim Prinz, met David Ben-Gurion's wife, Paula Ben-Gurion, at a dinner in New York. And Paula came right over to him and said, just so you know, she told him, that Mary is the only real Jew in the entire Ben-Gurion family. He concluded the story by saying this. When he was asked often why he did it so quickly, in contravention to the normal year-long study and all those other things, he said, the fact that she wanted to live amongst our people in our homeland, and that Mary held a gun on a border to protect the Jewish people. He said, to this very day, it is amongst the very best conversions he ever did in his life. Your people shall be my people. Your God shall be my God. Chag Sameach.